Hey, this is Bill Sandell. You're listening to Brigade-Radio-One.
You're listening to Brigade-Radio-One.
You're listening to Combat Radio with Ethan Dettenmeyer, right here on LA Talk Radio.
I want to ask, do you go crazy with this stuff? Like when you're in a Starbucks and people recognize you, be like, dude, what about this crazy?
There's two types. It's really funny. There's two types of people, and it's just starting because the first few series, there wasn't as many people watching it.
No,
I would say in the last 2 months, it drives my kids nuts, right? We go in somewhere, and somebody will come up and go, wait, I know you. You're on Ancient Aliens, and they get all excited.
Oh, shit.
But my daughter's always looking at them, and I hate to say this, she always looks at them and thinks to herself, are you a crazy person, or are you someone who's like into the cool stuff in the show?
Well, you're the guy they totally bounce it back to for credibility,
right?
And the editors know that because the editors install you in perfect places. I mean, and then they bounce around to some guy and quite frankly, your presentation is that of a guy who's intelligent, knows what he's talking about. They bounce to some of these crazy comic book guys. And he's like, I remember watching it, one guy's like, well, the Nazis were working on all sorts of stuff that would lead you to believe that they had some sort of connection with ancient intelligences. And I'm like...
and reparse that sentence?
Yeah, exactly. And it's like these... I mean, it's so... all the personalities involved in the show are really creative. There's no denying that. They're very... Whether you believe it or not, they're very creative people. But you can see that, guys are like, the folklorists or poetry expert, and they're bouncing around. And it's kind of like, well, but when they shoot to you, you're basically there. I mean, would you define your role? And how did you get involved in the show in the first place? But you're kind of like the
there's two things I do in it, I think. Well, first of all, I got into it because I'd done a bunch of stuff for Prometheus, for like Spider-Man tech and, Batman tech. And just to promote myself, that goes into a class I actually teach, which used to be called Science of Superheroes, and now is Science Fact, Science Fiction.
We need to take that class. Look at that. Look at Ryan, it's lit up.
and it's actually online in the summer.
Oh, no, we want to come in. We want to be there.
But it's kind of fun. I make kids design their own superhero and then justify if it's scientific or not.
Have you ever done anything on the Transformers?
I will now.
I would hope so.
Yeah,
I would hope so.
Here's your guest speaker. Right here.
So, but that got me in and with them, and so when they did the pilot, they asked me if I would do that, and the pilot was kind of fun. And actually, in the pilot, they had a lot of other, I think they had some archaeologists and other people. Yeah. And then as it moved on, they basically contact me and say, here's the underlying science theme of this episode. Can you talk about it? And do you think so? That I'm happy to do.
My superhero would be able to smell just a few seconds into the future.
Oh, that would be awesome.
Because I have trouble as a cook, with the exact timing on
See,
things. And if I could just smell a few seconds in the future. Also, of course,
your own superhero, and that's the ability you get.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it also would defend me on crowded elevators, if you know what I mean.
Right. Phil, I gotta say, mate, you are the weirdest dude I think
I've
ever.
However, if I have a student pull that as their superpower, I know they're copying.
Okay. Yeah. See that? He just said, because you said that on the radio, he'll know if
somebody's copying. I'll watch for that now in the next assignment.
One of the guys we'd love to have in here is Doug Jones, who's in the new Neighborhood Watch. He's been Stiller. He's been in everything from Hell.
It's now called The Watch, as not to be confused with the Trayvon Martin case.
Right, The Watch. That's actually true.
That is true.
Is that really?
Which ordinarily would make you think a distributor changing that name was paranoid that the film wasn't going to do well, so they were using this as an excuse. But when the distributor in question is owned by Rupert Murdoch,
right.
Who's no doubt listening to this.
He's been in everything.
And our phone calls. Then it's just paranoia.
Speaking of superheroes, he was the Silver Surfer. He was also the Eraser guy in Mystery Man. He's been a few superheroes. But
he's fantastic. Abe Sapien in the Hellboy.
Another superhero.
He's fantastic.
We were talking about superheroes in here, and we had the same discussion, name your own superhero, and I said, I'd be Dr. Combustion. I walk in a room and just explode. But it's a one-time deal, so I never do it.
Yeah, that's
Pan's Labyrinth.
That's a challenging superpower. I do point out to the students, most superheroes got their power by being in a huge radiation blast.
Right.
Which is a catch-22. You're a superhero for about the 0.1 seconds you're alive, and then you die from all the radiation.
Yes.
What's so weird about wanting enhanced smell abilities? I think
there is a downside.
As a hunter, I would be returning to nature. I would, and sensing the danger on the wind,
You could do that
Bambi's mother could have been hanging out with me and would have been safe.
Without having to have a
Bambi's
superpower.
mother. I love how he factors Bambi's mother into being a superhero.
That's the person you're
ability of
saving,
choice.
huh?
Yeah, I don't know.
Since we're talking about,
I'm intimidated by the giant sword.
Right,
I think
yeah.
that's throwing me off my game.
Mark walked in with Excalibur.
It's not Excalibur.
For the earlier
To
show.
be absolutely clear, it's not Excalibur.
Well,
It's an Albion from Robin and Sherwood. I did this show called Robin and Sherwood many years ago in the UK. It's a cult show in Europe. It was unusual because it was the first show that had a pagan icon god as the good guy and the church as the gangsters, basically the Normans as the bad guys.
and there's not one alien in the whole fucking program.
no, well, sort of there is, but that's a whole other story.
But there's a pagan god, you said.
There's a pagan god, Herne the Hunter, the horn god of
Right.
the forest, the green god and the defender of Sherwood Forest. He hands over his power, the mantle of power, to Robin Hood in the legends. And
okay.
So, in the legend that we used, I was born in Doncaster, so I grew up playing in Sherwood Forest and hiding in the Major Oak, and so I grew up with King Arthur, the Romans, the
Right.
Celts, the whole thing. Just one of those.
And
things.
I do love this idea, with comic books being so much our modern mythology, and how much of an understanding of physics from that time is sort of reflected always in mythology that's handed down.
Well, I've often wondered, and I often think if you look at like the Greek gods, right? They used them to try and explain nature. They were their mythology and their science at the same time, right? And then if you look at the the superheroes from the 30s, 40s, and 50s, right? They dealt with radiation in a way that the people were kind of trying to struggle and deal with it.
What about like vampire lore, that deals with the threat of diseases transferred by the blood and ways to avoid that, garlic, running
that certainly
water.
avoids other people.
Running water, avoiding still water, because of course still water always tended to be poisoned.
Right.
Running water, all these things are in these stories ostensibly for children, are revealing as a scientific understanding of how to protect yourself.
And now most of our superheroes are genetic mutations. And genetic mutation in biology is our current fear or love, depending on how you like it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, where I
Yeah.
have found that where there's fear, there is also desire, and usually in equal measure in the same people at the same time.
When you start talking about nanocomputers, biomolecular computers, which they are now, and I have friends that work in that biotech environment, and they're talking about changing things at the molecular level so they can actually, instead of your body rejecting it like most diabetes or cancer treatments, this actually goes into your body and changes the cancer at the cellular molecular level and switches off the cancer or the diabetes type stuff. That, to me, when you start talking about nanomolecular computers, we're already into a different...
Since we're on something I know nothing about, can you hand me the cream over there, please?
Right, yeah.
Well, you mentioned the Hadron Super Collider earlier in the show, and
we're going back to that.
Yes, but no, we have a physicist here in the room, and this is a question.
I hate to tell you, I study bubbles.
But it kills me. It kills me that the Hadron Super Collider does not get built in America. It really does.
They are building one. They're building one in Texas, aren't they?
Well, no, we killed that.
Oh,
We
really?
killed it. Yeah. What?
Yeah,
Explain what it does. Let's take it back. Look.
Okay.
You're overestimating our audience. Slow
Right.
Well,
down.
so you'll
what
explain
you're
the
talking
Hadron
about.
Super Collider and hopefully explain why these are the sort of things
Let's
that
get
we
this one
should be
from Mike.
investing in this country.
Go ahead, Mike.
So my basic description of physics and what we do, we throw things at stuff and try and make it break. And then we look at the pieces.
That from a PhD. How many years of schooling did you
That
put in?
took like 20 years to learn. Yeah. You throw stuff at things, you bounce it off it, you try and break it. So the Large Hadron Collider is basically taking fundamentally protons, large hadrons, getting them as fast as you can, smashing them into each other, and seeing what comes out. And the thing that's kind of weird about the universe that we seem to think now, right? You start as an ancient Greek, and you have basically four things: fire, air, water, and earth, and everything's made of four things. Then you move forward, and you have the periodic table, and everything's made up of all the elements in the periodic table. Then you move forward, and you've just got three things: protons, electrons, and neutrons. And then you start smashing those together. Now we've got thousands.
Well, now we've got dark energy and dark
You've
matter.
got dark energy
right?
and dark matter, but you've got all the subatomic particles making things up. And we're still trying to kind of figure out, is there kind of that bottom line fundamental small set of particles that makes everything up?
Or one field of energy that we can...
Or one
ground
field of
unification
energy
theory.
that
I mean,
unifies
we
everything.
haven't done that. So,
and isn't there this question of how does energy become matter?
Is there
Isn't
an
this
afterlife?
also...
Is there an afterlife?
So the afterlife is a cool question. I like that question. No, because okay, I'm going to be I'm going to go slightly weird for a moment and become the crazy old physicist.
You, from a guy from Ancient Aliens, is going to get weird on us?
Slightly weird. I'm not quite an old enough physicist to wander the halls with crazy hair, but I'm working on it.
That's the one thing about you that's normal. I mean,
right, yeah, my hair is pretty good on the show.
You've got a very, very normal hairstyle. Anyway, go ahead.
But, you know, you can take quantum mechanics to different extremes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right? And it's basically a description of the world in terms of what we like to call the wave function. Mm-hmm. Right, which is just your probability of being somewhere. But it describes things in a kind of this unphysical way. So it raises the question of, you know, this is your body's one physical manifestation of it. What happens when it goes away? Is your wave function still there? How's that for weird?
Well,
I don't know how weird that actually is. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Have you read any Rupert Sheldrake? Have you followed? Do you know who Rupert Sheldrake is?
No,
He was
I
the
haven't.
Cambridge biochemist that came up with the concept of the morphic field. Or the morphic resonance. And he was absolutely lambasted by it because being a Cambridge biochemist, for a biochemist to come up with a theory that went, the reason we're missing bits out of this grand unification theory concept is because one of the fields that we're missing is the morphic field, the living field. That and his idea was, like a Buddhist idea, we're in a field of life. The table is not verbally elite and can't express itself, but it doesn't mean it's still not vibrating at some atomic particle level with this field of life, energy. So his concept was, life is not within us. We're just a bag of meat and bones and blood and particles, but we're vibrating this energy, and that's what makes us conscious and verbally elite. He got absolutely attacked for this, but since then his books have become kind of like, well, people reading it and going,
Yeah, that's one of those weird things, and that's the sort of thing that will often come up in Ancient Aliens, right? We start talking about vibrating energy fields and, you know, what do the aliens do? And I take a slightly different direction on it, which is, you know, when I talk about that wave function and the thought, you know, I don't think you need an additional energy field or additional vibration. I'm not really talking about that. You know, you think about us now, we are intelligent because of our brain. And that's where our consciousness is, and the electrons are all complicated and they interact, and there's complicated interactions. But that just tells us we've learned one thing scientifically, that if you get a complicated enough stuff interacting, you get intelligence. And there's a lot of stuff in the universe, and it's complicated and it's interacting.
as a scientist, do you believe...
So there could be other intelligence.
Do you believe in the Jungian concept of a collective consciousness, that we somehow can speak to a greater consciousness, or is it just you believe it's all just happening in the human brain?
You know, I think it's I don't know if it's quite what Jung would say. You know, I think there is this fact that we all interact with each other. I mean, anytime you have interactions between matter, you have something going on.
Is Ray Kurzweil correct when he assumes that we'll all be half computer in a few years?
That worries me, because, you know,
it worries me too.
It could be kind of scary. You know, but we already can, and this is true. This is fact, and we do it at UC Irvine. You can already put a helmet on with electrodes into your brain and control a computer.
Yeah. They just did it with a lady. Apparently, they built a computer that she could, with her thoughts, was able to move a mechanical arm about because she lost an arm.
So you can move arms. You can play Pong.
Yeah.
I don't think you can quite play, you know, more advanced video games, but you can get the computer to do Pong, and it's because your brain's basically electrical, and you know.
So is it going to be like the Matrix, where we just plug in?
You know, it could be.
Yeah.
But it's all.
Or
a question.
is it already?
Yeah, or we already. Yeah.
Man, that's.
You know who should be here for this? Who would love this conversation? Who? TV's Dean Haglund.
I think so.
I'm gonna tag out.
You want to tag out? Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Here, what we'll do is we'll do an official tag out, because we're gonna go to a musical break.
On your computer, on your Wi-Fi radio, on your iPhone. Commercial-free original talk. Only on LA Talk Radio. Your favorite talk station.
Better subscribe to this channel before you look uncool.